Welcome to the Oi. It's your boy, Zach O'Ryan, everybody. Good to be back. Today we got a really good episode. I get the chance to sit down with one of my favorite people in Chicago, none other than Patrick Welby, the DePaul alumni himself, Director of Strategic Partnerships at Project, and co-founder of These Days Magazine and Oxcore DJ, aka Mr. Make It Happen. Oh boy, I love talking to this guy. Today we get deep into branding, starting your own business, and leaping some of the hurdles that comes along with that. Talk strategy, going viral, failing startups, and how to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and get back on that horse. Everybody, Patrick Welby's coming in hot. You know how we do here at the Oi. We laugh, we learn, we grow, we bullshit, we have a good time. Everybody buckle up. Hope you enjoy this episode. Episode 5, featuring Patrick Welby, coming at you. Patrick Welby, can you hear me?
What up?
What have you been up to, man? How you spending quarantine days?
Quarantine's good. It's actually been a pretty busy week on multiple fronts. So I'm feeling a little bit of normalcy, especially now that we're on week 6 or 7.
Yeah, man, we are deep into this quarantine. Deep. We got to be getting out of here soon, right?
I mean, I was just listening to the governor's press conference, and there was 3,000 new cases overnight.
Oh man. And that's the number that we got. That's the big number, the new cases, because like as crazy as it sounds, so like this, I was reading an article and they're like, everyone is harping on the deaths, like the overall deaths and like but the new cases are like how we are actually handling everything. You know what I mean?
Because testing's actually
like we're handling that well. Doesn't sound like we're handling that well. Actually, I train at a gym, and one of the managers from the gym said that he got word from someone who's close to the governor that don't even expect the gyms to open until best case scenario August. Best case scenario, Patrick Welby, August. Is that insane? That's crazy, right?
As someone who works in the live events business and relies on crowds, it's not looking good.
I'm a stand-up comedian, man. I'm a stand-up comedian, dude. This has got me dancing in front of TikTok and shit. I had to stop that. That's why I was like, you know what? I need to start a podcast. I've got to roll out a new website. I've got to get something going because I don't care about any of that. It was like an outlet to flex that creativity muscle.
Yeah.
But there was no fulfillment in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You walk on stage as a stand-up comedian, you do your thing, you leave, there's a fulfillment there. As anybody experiences when they're doing something they're passionate about or they love. And when that gets taken away from you, you start to scramble and you try to figure out how to fill that void. And that's kind of like where I was. It had nothing to do with anything along the lines of missing the actual component of stand-up comedy as much as it had to do with like the lack of like identity. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The only reason I'm in Chicago, really, the main reason is for stand-up comedy. So when that gets taken away, you're like, what the fuck? What am I doing here? Just sitting in quarantine, itching my balls, watching Sports Center. I've got to do something. So then they're like, oh, get on TikTok. And I'm like, oh, the new Drake song. And I'm like, oh, man, I got to do something, dude. I got to do something, man. And then just being locked down just makes it even crazier. So
yeah,
it's been nuts. What have you been doing? How have you been staying productive? What are you doing through the quarantine to make sure you're staying on your A game? Because you're obviously not going in. You're doing your day-to-day at Project. You obviously can't do that anymore. You've got your hand in a ton of different
music brands. What are you doing? Have you been Zoom calling? How have you been staying in touch? How have you been making sure that you're flexing that muscle and keeping yourself productive?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely pretty busy with normal day-to-day work stuff with project, from 9 to 6. But just trying to like keep a regular routine in the morning, trying to get a walk in. Usually in the evenings, I've been doing like almost 2-hour walks, and it's been cool to just kind of explore the cities, tune into some podcasts, just like zone out for a second. But then I've also been using some of like this extra time to like knock out some projects that I've always wanted to work on. Like I'm a closet country music fan, so I've been working on kind of an idea I've had for a long time, and I've built this website for a long time, and finally getting the time to actually put that together. So that's been pretty cool. And then having management duties with Number 6 with Cheese Guys, and then daily operations of These Days, my music magazine. There's definitely enough to do.
Yeah, you sound like you're keeping yourself busy. That's why I wanted to bring you in, Patrick. I'm rolling out all these different things, and they're kind of all under one umbrella, and I'm having a really difficult time understanding the concept of branding. It's really never been something that I've needed to pay too much attention to, because I've always been kind of streamlined in what I'm doing. I've always been like, okay, this is where I'm at right now. It's all stand-up comedy. So all I focused on was stand-up comedy, doing stand-up comedy. Well, once I got into stand-up comedy and I started getting it, Patrick Welby is gone. What the fuck happened? Where'd you go? What the fuck happened? I don't know. What was the last thing you heard?
Did you say what was the last thing I said?
What was the last thing you heard? Because I heard everything from
you. You were like reach for something and it like cut out or something.
What in the fuck, bro? I'm telling you now, I ran a podcast yesterday and it was flawless.
I'm on, yeah. Flawless. I'm on like my high-speed network. I have literally everything closed.
It's literally running as fast as possible right now. This is perfect. Am I still sounding like shit to you?
Yeah.
That's so annoying. It's so fucking annoying. I'm gonna fucking snap.
I mean, let me make sure it's not my headphones or something.
Connection solid.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Better?
Now you sound loud and clear.
Oh my goodness. We're good. We're back in the game. All right, let's take a step back. Where were we at? Because I heard you through the whole thing, and then I started getting in. Okay. Let's take a step back. So you got your hands in so many things, and that's really why I wanted to talk. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Did you go away? I heard something. No. Can you hear me? You can't hear me? What in the fuck? Can you hear me now? This is unbelievable. Anything?
Anything? Anything? Nothing?
Anything? Hello? Wait, okay, unmute. Say something. Somehow I can like hear you typing. You can't hear me? Oh my God. Unmute.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah.
I can hear you.
Is it good?
Super good.
All right. All right, we're in there. That's all good. Man, you got your hands on a lot of different things. That's why I thought you were going to be perfect for this episode, to be honest. The way I've always been is I've always been super streamlined. So when I got into stand-up, everything was just stand-up comedy, stand-up comedy, stand-up comedy. So I never had to worry about branding, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you're something you're an expert at. Now that, and you know how it goes. I got into stand-up, so then that led to another opportunity, which was acting. So then my entire life I've been into fitness. So now I've got fitness and stand-up and acting. And then from writing stand-up, now I'm writing scripts, and now I'm trying to write a book. And so now I got the writing side of things. So then I start putting together all of these different things that are like little, they're like subcategories to what I'm doing as an artist, but I'm actually trying to develop a few of them as their own entities, right?
Right.
So I understand that I don't really want the crossover from like my stand-up over to fitness. I don't really want the crossover from like fitness to writing, or from writing to acting and things like that. So I had like this big, just pool of things that I'm doing with no real idea of how to brand those. And I thought you'd be perfect, given the fact that, shit, man, what have you rolled out 10 different brands in your life? More than that? Probably
Yeah.
well more than that. Why don't you give everybody a quick background on what you do, man? Because like I've let everybody know about the co-founding with These Days and all of that stuff, but like, what is These Days? What's your music background, man? How did all of this come about? What's your story, P. Welbs?
Yeah, for sure. So my normal day job is I work at an experiential marketing company called Project. So I usually describe experiential marketing as anytime a brand is associated with an event or an experience. So that could be a tasting in a liquor store all the way to sponsoring the Super Bowl. So that's my day job. And then I'm co-founder of These Days, which is an online music magazine. We cover music and culture definitely through like a Chicago lens. Definitely a focus on Chicago music of all genres, other creatives, but we do cover outside Chicago as well. And then I also manage our dear friends, Number Six with Cheese. And then I have some other side stuff, that have kind of fallen to the side that are more event driven, because of everything going on in the world, like aux core DJs. But those are kind of the three main things that I'm working on right now.
Nice, man. Nice. How's everything going with aux core DJs? Are you doing anything remote with them right now, or?
Yeah, we're exploring some options. We as a team are in different parts of the city, and one of our partners is out in New York. So we're trying to figure out if there's a way, where we could do it over Zoom, or put together playlists from some of our past DJs. I mean, we've had over 175 different people DJ over the past few years. So maybe reconnecting with some of those people, and in that same tradition of the party, like seeing what they're listening to.
Yeah. It's always been about the music for you, right? Is that what you went to school for, or did you pick this up later in life? Or
Yeah, always been always been about the music. It definitely starts as a, growing up with my parents, who are both huge music fans. My dad especially, he's a huge record collector. He's got thousands of vinyl, thousands of CDs. Has taken me to concerts my entire life. Famously took me to the Grateful Dead when I was like 12 years old. So that sort of, seeing music at such an early age, I was very interested to see like how I could be a part of it. And I was always sort of naturally drawn to like the logistics side of it. Like, how does this song get in on a streaming platform? How does this show come together? How does a band get publicity or PR? Things like that were always kind of interesting to me. So as I was deciding where to go for school, what city I went to and the music scene around it was definitely a huge part of my decision. And New York, LA, Nashville didn't seem like the right fit for me, or felt too far from my home in Minnesota. And so Chicago felt like a good place, and found a home right away at DePaul University, and got involved with the music scene at the university by doing a show at the radio station. And that was kind of like the first early experience I got of like really being involved in the music scene here in Chicago on like a day-to-day basis.
Nice. And it was just, you had the ball rolling, and it's just kind of steamrolling downhill ever since, huh?
Yeah, just, I had some good momentum at the radio station, just like really formed a community there. The radio station itself was getting a lot of national recognition, and we won some awards while we were there. So that definitely helped. And then I think just the consistency of doing a show once a week. I did it every Sunday night from 6 to 9 p.m. for 4 years. That experience combined with some of the leadership opportunities I had at the radio station kind of set me up for success as far as next steps when I graduated, which I co-founded a music-focused technology startup and was managing a band. And those were kind of my first, steps of really taking seriously, doing my own thing in the music industry here in Chicago after college, and managed that band and did that startup for 4 or 5 years after college. So that took me to about my mid-20s.
Oh, damn. How'd you find the band? Are they friends of yours, or?
Yeah, so it was a 6-piece funk soul band, and we had some extra players. But yeah, half the guys were DePaul students, and half the guys were Northwestern students. Met a couple of the guys at the radio station, actually. He was my co-host for one of the shows I did. And they played their first show on campus at DePaul.
Yeah.
And it just kind of rolled from there. We did a couple hundred shows in the years following, and had some great opportunities to travel and tour. And we had an album that was #1 on Bandcamp, which was a pretty big deal at the time. And our album made it to the front page of Reddit, so that had its own trickle down effect of things happening. So the band was a great learning experience, but like all good things, sometimes they come to an end. So the band eventually broke up, but they all remain like dear friends.
How was tour life, Patrick Welby?
Tour life was awesome. I was, in my early 20s, certainly my first experience managing adults out on the road. But going from city to city, kind of waking up, experiencing the day's challenges, whether it's, loading in the show or trying to get some extra tickets sold, or figuring out where all 6 guys are. When you wake up with six young men in a city like New Orleans, and they're all in different places, it's kind of a challenge to track everybody down. But it was a blast. I got such good early experience, dealing with promoters and venue folks, and it was trial by fire.
Whose job was it to usher out the groupies in the morning? Is that the manager's job?
just a wink and a smile and a
get the hell out of here. We got shit to do.
It wasn't very often where we would usually roll into the city we were playing, like early afternoon, load in, sound check. We were usually one of the opening bands. Rarely were we a headliner. And then sometimes we would drive to the next gig straight after the show. And we were crashing at people's places. We actually had crashed some of the venues that we played, which was disgusting.
You just play and sleep in the back?
Yeah, some of them had sleeping quarters. And
That's
a generous
tour life, baby.
That's a
what I
generous
wanna hear.
term. One of them was so bad. I was like, I can't sleep in here. It was this super weird place in Houston, Texas. I think it was called Super Happy Fun Time or something along those lines.
Sounds like a massage parlor.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was the guy who was the owner was just super bizarre, and he was wearing a one piece outfit, and he had all these weird collections of dolls around the venue. It was really legendary locally. A bunch of people told us to play there. And then we crashed there with a band from I think South Korea. So that was weird on its own, but I was I can't sleep on this couch. It's just, it smells like piss and disgusting. So I actually went and slept out in the car that night.
Oh shit. They let the manager sleep in the car? That's some bullshit.
Yeah.
Should have fired the new band and found your new drummer right there in that city.
Yeah.
So you got the band going. What was the band called? What was the name of the band?
The band was called Why So White, all one word.
Why So? Oh, that's right. Why So White? Now, what's the Jay-Z reference here with Why So White? What's the deal?
Well, at one point we were featured on Jay-Z's online magazine. It was called Life and Times.
Life and Times? That's sick. Wasn't that the name of one of his albums too? The Life and Times of Jay-Z? Or am I crazy? I could be crazy.
I'm sure it's got to be a reference in the Jay-Z universe, right?
That's sick though. Would you get more publicity off of that or the Reddit page?
The Reddit page for sure. Our guitarist Chris, who mixed and recorded the whole album, brilliant guy. He very genuinely just put up a post on Reddit and some sort of DIY recording forum or something along those lines, and was like, hey, I've been working on this hundreds of hours, check it out. And the Reddit community kind of just latched onto it, and it was kind of one of those things where it was 1 or 2 in the morning and we're like, holy shit, we're on the front page of Reddit. And it kind of trickled into the next day. And we just kept hovering in and out of the top 20 posts on Reddit. And as a direct result of that, we took hundreds of thousands of downloads in. We had our album up on Bandcamp, which was kind of a pay what you want model. So some people would give us $0 and some people would give us $150. So we brought in some cash with that, which was awesome. And that sort of rocketed us to be the #1 album on Bandcamp, which was at the time very, very good look because so many independent musicians were using that platform to release their music, and so many music fans went to that platform to discover new artists. So that Reddit thing was huge.
That's insane. So is Bandcamp is it kind of like a SoundCloud?
Yeah, it's kind of like a SoundCloud. I guess it sort of has, I would describe SoundCloud kind of has a more hip hop and dance music scene to it, where Bandcamp I'd say is more conducive to bands and indie rock bands and punk bands. Artists, regardless of genre, definitely release it on both, but Bandcamp originally stood out because they were a platform that allowed you to do these different models where you could donate. I think they used to have a tipping, a tip jar type situation.
Uh-huh.
They also allow you to implement other merch, t-shirts, vinyl, things like that. It's actually pretty cool. During the COVID crisis, they've been picking random days where they are waiving their fees so that artists are getting 100% of the money that's coming in, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that's sick. Yeah, there's a lot of companies that are doing that. I know Zoom was doing that when the quarantine first hit. Zoom was like, oh yeah, everything's free. And then they're like, hey, by the way, now it's not anymore. After a week, they're like, no, 40 minutes. Better talk fast. 40 minutes.
Yeah.
PayPal's nice. PayPal's doing the instant transfers now, which is cool because, like, give me my shit. You know what I mean? I don't want to waste 3 days. So how did you leverage that? I don't want to call it like online fame. How did you leverage that attention from Reddit? Do you think you leveraged it correctly? Like, what would you do different now if something like that were to happen? What did you do? Did you have a plan in place? Hey, this just went viral. What do we do? Or were you just stuck like a deer in the headlights? Like, shit. How did that work?
Pretty much zero plan. It's, looking back on it now, there's a lot of things I would have done differently, but at the same time, I'm not going to harp on it too much because that's how you learn, is having those learning experiences. I think the way we optimized that opportunity the most was as a direct result of getting all those downloads on Bandcamp. We got everyone's email, so we all of a sudden had a huge newsletter database that would kind of allow us to hit that audience with, whether we released a music video or we were going to go on tour. We also at the time had like our own Google phone number, and we would pretty freely share that out so fans could like text with the band. And that was another really cool way for us to just kind of like see where people were at, see what cities people wanted us to come to. We would just share kind of like behind the scenes photos through that. And but nothing was, we would meet after practice, and plan things out at some capacity, but we were definitely flying by the seat of our pants. But I think that authenticity was pretty transparent on all our socials and our shows, and I think people really appreciated that, and that realness definitely made the band more successful.
It's interesting that you say that because I feel like with bands in particular, more so than a lot of other artists in different genres, it seems like there's more like a connection there. You know what I mean? So like bands, just from the people that I've talked to or like the bands that I like, it seems like I'm more likely to follow your every step if I can connect with you more on a personal level. Whereas, hip hop artists or rappers or anything else, I'm not too inclined to like really have like a closer personal connection or an attempt at that with them. What do you think that is? Why do bands have more of like a personal draw? Do you think it's just the way the music works? Do you think it's like the way what they're writing, what they're saying in their lyrics, you're more connected? What do you think that is?
Well, I think bands, you're already part of a collaborative process, and whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, you kind of have to get in the mix if you want your voice heard and you're going to be on stage. And fortunately, my guys were pretty engaging. Like a couple of the guys had theater and performance backgrounds. They had all performed, since they were, early teenagers. Some of them were in school for music, so they had spent a lot of time on stage, and we're kind of all just like media and movie and music and journalism, nerds. So I think that really translated, like after shows, like those guys would stick around for hours and just talk with people and like give everybody the time of day. And I think that really went a long way.
Yeah, that's excellent. We wanted to talk about branding anyways, but let's get back. Let's finish this out real quick. So then the band broke up. So now what are you doing?
Yeah. So the band breaks up sort of simultaneously. The startup I had been working on for a couple of years had fizzled out. My business partner and I kind of decided that we hadn't really found a sustainable business model. We had remained good friends through the whole process and wanted that to continue. So we were like, let's just wipe our hands clean.
Yeah.
Figure out how to exit intelligently, keep our relationships and contacts and some of our contributors all happy, and that was all successful. But I was kind of back at square one with no real future. I mean, I was really planning on the band and the startup succeeding, and you know, with neither of those in the mix, I was definitely in a little bit of a rut for, you know, probably 2.5, 3.5 years, where I was just, you know, bouncing around some part-time jobs and really trying to figure out what to do next. Yeah, that was a really humbling experience.
Yeah. What'd you end up doing?
So my main part-time gig was I worked at an indoor cycling studio that was in downtown Chicago, and I just really tried to figure out something I liked about the job. I didn't really have particular affinity for fitness in general, but I just really liked the job, and it had flexible hours, and it was good people, and I had a good boss. I just really tried to figure out what I liked about the job. So because of my passion for music, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to program the music for the lobby. And
Nice.
you know, I'm kind of like basically DJing, you know, from 6 a.m. when we opened till my shift ended at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. And I would kind of like build ebb and flow, and I would like kind of see what songs worked, which ones didn't. I would like literally watch to see if people would like be nodding their head or tapping their toe or like come up and ask me about what song was playing.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to see if I could turn that into a business. So I literally put together an LLC where I was, my business model was I was going to go to businesses and help them curate and program the music. So if it was like a coffee shop or a restaurant or a yoga studio, I've kind of like helped them figure out their sonic identity. And for a business to play music in their establishment, they do need to get some licenses, which were at the time very cumbersome. There's a lot of paperwork. It was kind of scattered across a couple different places. And I was like, okay, if I can just make this a turnkey solution plus my music knowledge, you know, maybe there's something there. So went forward with that, started reaching out to businesses. And one of the people I reached out to was this guy named Matt Woodburn and this woman named Sarah Newcomb. And she and Matt gave me the opportunity to kind of get some of the music going on Chop Shop, which is a restaurant and music venue in Wicker Park. And that was kind of my first, you know, I was getting the ball rolling with that a little bit and started to hang out with Matt and Sarah a little bit more, who were in the space that I'm in now, which is like event production and experiential marketing. And simultaneously, while I was kind of working on that new business idea, started freelancing for them. And that's kind of, you know, what took me to where I am today in event production and experiential marketing.
Hell yes, man.
Yeah.
I'm all about that. Dude, it's so interesting too how like if you just push forward on like the things that you love and you're like, okay, I have no idea really like what the end game is here or like where the final trajectory is, but I know I have a passion in this and I know that there's a need. So let me just push forward, how things kind of just start to come together, right?
Yeah.
But also that's scary. That's super scary, man.
Super scary.
Because if you work at a job, right, you show up at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, you leave at 5, but you know what you're supposed to do all day, right? You got a manager, you got a boss, you got the business model, you know what you're supposed to do all day. When you are freelancing or you're out on your own and you're trying to figure out your own, what you're supposed to be doing, or you dig deep into a startup or, you know, monetizing you know, something as silly as or something like a blog or just monetizing any one of your interests or passions, there's no blueprint to it. There's not like, you can't just go to Google and be like, oh, how do I do this? And then be a professional at it. They're just like, good luck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good luck.
It's really challenging to try and self-motivate and figure out what you got to do for your own startup and like figure out how to monetize it and best spend your time and figure out your brand. And you know, you really just got to go through it. And there's obviously a lot of resources out there, but you just got to suck it up and give it a go.
Speaking of
Can I
branding,
can I
yeah,
stop you for 1 second? I think
yeah.
someone's like knocking on my door. One
Yeah,
sec.
go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. 1 second. Sorry, dude.
No, you're good. I'll just edit that out. So you've had your hand in a ton of different things. Obviously, you're the director over at the director of strategic partnerships over at Project. You're the co-founder of These Days magazine, and also the co-founder of the Aux DJ. How do you play the branding game? How do you differentiate? Okay, I can't Aux DJ and These Days magazine. They're both music. How do you decide these can't go under the same umbrella? These should be two different entities. These have to be separate from the thing I'm doing at Project. How do you keep yourself in line with all of these? How do you keep growing all of these different brands? And how do you decide when one should branch off or when maybe two different things you're doing should come together? What's your strategy when it comes to branding when you have a new idea?
Yeah, I think the main thing is, if you're gonna have like multiple brands going on or multiple entities, is like really figuring out ways that they can complement each other. So to your point, Oxcore DJs and These Days both in the music space, but I've really found ways to have them complement each other. So for example, I'll find out about a new artist. Let's say it's a soul R&B singer-songwriter, and they're perfect to cover on These Days. Get the photo shoot together, write about them, put them out into the universe on the These Days side of things. And it's like, oh, great, this would be a perfect person for me to have DJ a future Oxcord event. So then I can support this artist in another way. So just like figuring out ways that these two different entities can complement each other, and just being mindful of them not stepping on each other's toes has served me the best. And that's also been a great way to get sponsor and brand partners. Is, okay, again, thinking back to the brand, like they need a media partner and they need an event partner. Well, I have two different entities that can kind of help fulfill both those needs.
Okay. When it comes to what happens if in any world, do you think, what happens if These Days magazine and Oxcore DJs could come together or collaborate? Is that exactly how you present it? This is just a collaboration between the two, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a really good idea. We've never really officially collaborated. I've definitely had some of the These Days staff DJ the event, but we've never done like a full-on collaboration, which is actually a pretty good idea.
Nice. Where do you
guys
see?
should do.
Yeah, think about it. You know what I mean?
I'll
Yeah, come back to me if you need some. If you need some help, come back to me. You know what I mean?
Send me an invoice.
Yeah, I got you. What do you see as being like your biggest advertising platform? Or where do you advertise? How do you advertise? Is it all through SEO? Are you I know These Days magazine is obviously through SEO, but how are you getting the word out through Oxcore DJ? Do you do a lot of like Facebook ads, YouTube ads? How do you get the name out? Initially, so like, let's pretend you were just rolling out Oxcore DJ. How did you start? Or let's pretend you're just rolling out These Days magazine, right? So it's an online magazine. What's your marketing strategy for that?
Word of mouth. We've never spent a single dollar marketing these days or Oxcord. It's all just been word of mouth and like building community and, having a staff and volunteer contributors that are like self-motivated and interested in growing that community. So yeah, we've never for either entity, I've never spent on marketing dollars, whether it's like targeted ads or anything like that.
I think that's the best way to build an organic following is word of mouth and build the community first, right? So if you focus on the community and they are bought into the movement and what you're doing, the content's going to come, right? So you can push the content out as long as you're pushing out great content and focusing on your community. I think that's the best way to build your brand organically.
And that exactly is how we've gotten the best sponsorship and investment. Is I think the brands that we've worked with have seen that, like we do have that authentic interaction with our audience. Like for these days and Oxcord, we've had a pretty good relationship with Hennessy. And we actually did a mini documentary via These Days last year, where Hennessy was looking to invest in the Latinx art community. And so they had a singer in mind that they wanted to do coverage on, and they needed a media entity to partner with. And, we had those resources to have someone do the write-up, someone do the video, someone do the studio photos. So for them, it was like a perfect combination of things to do. And for Oxcord too, it's been a really beneficial property for us to build, particularly with like beer and spirits sponsors, because we can go to one of their key accounts, and then we can really drive like cocktail deals with that specific spirit, and it just helps drive sales for them. So just like thinking like, what is a brand going to want? What's going to really help them drive sales or awareness or get more social media followers from a specific market? Kind of just like reverse engineering their thought processes allows you to just like make better decisions for your own platform.
If you were rolling out a new platform right now, I know you're a busy guy. You got anything up the old sleeves? You coming out with anything new next, or you kind of just focus on your new stuff? What do you got going on?
Yeah,
new coming out?
Yeah, so I kind of briefly mentioned it earlier, but I'm a little bit of a closet country music fan.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And I've always been looking for a way to discover new artists in that space, but kind of feel like I always run into the same like stereotypical like website or magazine or social media accounts that are just like cowboy boots and you know exactly what I'm talking about. That like sort of over emphasized like red, white, and blue, like it's the same stereotype the whole time. And I've gone to Nashville a couple times for pleasure, and I just really love the vibe and the singer songwriter culture and like just the hustle of musicians moving blindly to a city just to figure it out. It's kind of like comedy in Chicago. So I really want to find and showcase artists kind of with that spirit, but I also felt like there's a huge underrepresentation of women and people of color in country music, and I know they're out there doing it. So just kind of want to like build a platform where those artists are highlighted and spotlighted, but I also wanted to just do like other fun stuff like like beer I'm drinking, like whiskey that I think is interesting, like cool recipes. So I'm just kind of like trying to build this own little culture around the like segment of country music that I like. So yeah, I'm just kind of like building a website. It's live right now. It's called countryamplifier.com. And I think you'll kind of get a sense of what I'm going for. I literally have a mood board for it, like right on the main page, just so everyone can kind of see what I'm going for. And I've got the 25 songs in country music that I like right now, and I'm hoping to kind of refresh that. I don't know, probably bi-weekly, but I just think there's a real opportunity there, especially with like people that live in the city that like this music and don't necessarily all the time, relate to like that rural, lifestyle.
See, that's awesome. And dude, I knew you were going to be the perfect person to reach out for this, because you know how I am. I'm all over the place in terms of like my interest levels, or my interest in things that have stark contrast with one another. And it's refreshing to hear how your passion is in music, and you're able to still brand so many different things off of that one culture, right? So many different, I mean, instead of just picking up, like, you could have easily just had like these days, right? And then, oh, this is these days DJ. This is the these days country edition. This is that. But you're building your own brand for each specific group. So now someone who's really only interested in country music, they don't have to, go to these days where maybe you're highlighting a Chicago artist that week that's not a country singer. So they're going to have no interest. So then maybe they don't come back to that website. I really appreciate that. And that's something that I'm trying to wrap my head around, branding, and all of that kind of makes a lot more sense. What's the number one, if you had to give one piece of advice when it comes to branding, what would it be?
To me, it's really helpful when the branding is like super transparent to what it is. I think like these days is not a great example of that. Like, it's a little different because it's sort of like a music and culture magazine, and we've built a personality to that name. But aux-core DJs is very literal. It's literally people aux-core DJing.
Yeah.
And it's been great for that event, because people like get what it is right away.
Right.
And the company I had where I was programming music for restaurants, that was called Music Supervision Company. And music supervision is when you put music to visuals.
Mm-hmm.
That's the title someone has in the credits of a movie or a web series or a film, is they're the music supervisor. So I was like, what are people going to Google? Just so, I just try and keep it super clear what it is. And, that's the same with Country Amplifier right now. It's like, okay, what it's going to be. It's going to be about country music. It's going to be about amplifying, that music and that culture that I'm, narrowing in on.
That's awesome, man. I'm excited to see what you've got going on. Do you have any expectation for a launch date on that bad boy, or are you still messing around?
No, it's live. I've been doing I did like just yesterday a first round of tweets of like tagging some artists, and a couple of them actually responded back, which was awesome. But yeah, it's all out there. The socials are all live. I'm kind of running it anonymously just to see how it goes. But yeah, so far so good.
That's awesome, man. What web host did you end up using to launch your website?
Squarespace. But that's what these days is built on, and the project website's built on, and that's what the Number 6 of Cheese guys use. So I'm pretty proficient at it at this point. So didn't want to learn a whole new system.
Right.
As much as valuable as that is to be versatile, but I think Squarespace is pretty awesome. Very, very easy to turn on and off the lights. They have really great customer service. There's a good like user community. If you're running into issues, you can solve stuff pretty quickly with a quick Google search. So I love Squarespace.
Yeah, that's what I built the Unemployables page on, was Squarespace. I went through Bluehost for the OI podcast. Very similar.
Yeah.
Very similar in those standings. Well, we're going to wrap up here. One thing I wanted to ask you, though, tell me about a time, Patrick Welby, where it all almost seemed lost. I mean, it was the curtain, the drapes were closed, man. It was darkness, Patrick Welby. You didn't see how am I going to get back into it? Tell me about a time, and then tell me how you got back into it, overcame that hurdle.
Yeah, I mean, when the startup was fizzling out and the band was breaking up and I had no real clear path forward, that was pretty humbling. And I was really trying to figure it out for 2 or 3 years, and you know, talking to good friends and having good mentors, and some support from my parents and my sister, things like that. I think my dad really, he was like, you got like a free master's program. You ran a startup. You traveled around the country. Like, you have tremendous experience. You just need to like dig back into what you really like, and you'll figure it out. And I don't know what exactly sparked that moment of like trying to figure out what I did like about that cycling studio job, but just playing music for people, kind of just refired the creative juices, got the gears flowing a little bit, got me back into that. How can I monetize this exercise? And, that took me to the next chapter of my life. And here I am doing exactly what I hope to be working on.
That's awesome. And you're exactly right too, because there is so much to learn even in, actually, I'll say this, there's so much to learn, especially in failure, because in that failure, in those moments where like you're starting to see it kind of go and dwindle, that's when you're really digging in and you're like, oh, I got to figure it out. And even if you lose, like, that's when you're giving your A game, just trying to save it. And then you can take that information and just apply it to the next thing you're doing. I know that if this podcast, which I haven't even released the first episode, if this podcast failed right now, just from the work that I've put into rolling out the podcast, figuring out the branding, figuring out the website and the new web host, everything, if I stopped right now and started doing something else, I would have so much knowledge just from what I learned in the last few weeks that, you know what, man, I don't even know in the space I'm in now, I don't even think I would be upset about it, because the learning like the things I've learned is what I'm trying to take with me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And to your point, like, even thinking back to that part-time job, although it wasn't necessarily in an industry I was looking to advance my career in, now that I look back on it, I got so much valuable experience in customer service and like interacting with people on like a personal level. I mean, I would have like hundreds of customers come and go during one shift, and like the amount of relationships I made, and just like memorizing people's names and things about them, and like having that personal connection. And that, I don't know, I feel like having those thousands of interactions over that time that I worked there, like, truly benefited my ability to network and just listen to people and empathize and be a problem solver. And so yeah, it just, even if whether you're doing it, whether you like it or not, like, just trying to find the best out of that learning experience.
You're a powerful person, Patrick Welby. I appreciate your mentorship, but most importantly, I appreciate your friendship.
Likewise, Zacho.
Man,
I learn from you all the time.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. But like, I think we learned in different ways. Like, I learned from your positive things that you do, and like you learn from like the way I'm like, hey, I failed at this, so don't do this. And you're like, okay, all right, cool. That's awesome, Patrick. We're gonna get out of here, man. I'm gonna actually just let you go, dude. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I know you're busy. Take off and go do what you got to do. But before you go, tell us where we can find you, and leave us with a closing remark.
Yeah, for sure. You can find me at Pwelbs, PWELBS, on all socials. That's my nickname. Definitely check out These Days. That's thesedaysmag.com, MAG.com. Definitely check out my Number 6 with Cheese Boys. They're grinding hard and helping with them a lot of stuff on the back end. So any support you can show for them would be great. And then definitely check out Project. We're doing some really fun stuff. We actually do this event called Sector 7. It's a networking event, and it's open to anyone. So if you want to learn more about that, that will be my parting message. I would love to interact with any of Zacho's audience, and I can tell you more about that event and have you along. I know you've done one, so you can.
I have done one. I'll put a link for all of that in the bio and description for this podcast, so y'all can check that out. I'll put the link in for the Sector 7 that I did too, so you can see a baby picture of old Zacho with his fat lollipop head.
Beautiful.
Awesome, Patrick Welby. Hey, man, take care. Stay safe. I love
Thanks,
you.
Zacho. I love you too.
Thanks for tuning into the Oi Podcast. Do me a favor, like, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you're listening. Visit us at www.theoipodcast.com. See you next week. Peace.